Hi, my name is Lisa Butters, and this is my story. Come check us out.
Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the WEA project interview. We are the Women's in Aviation Asia project. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk and engage with us. And please do tell us and the audience a little bit more about yourself and your personal life.
Yeah, so I'm so happy to be here. I think this initiative is just spot on and so great. My name is Lisa Butters. I work for Honeywell, and I'm the general manager of GoDirect Trade, which is an online marketplace that's powered by Honeywell that specializes in new and used aviation parts. So, to sum it up, we're pretty much the Amazon of aerospace, so to speak, which is a really interesting industry. Yeah. What's interesting about the industry that I work in is it's about $4 billion a year, and it's for used aerospace parts, and almost none of it is done online. So we're really trying to shift an entire channel where orders are placed via email and phone call, and we're trying to digitize everything. So it's really exciting.
That is definitely really impressive. Yeah. You've definitely have achieved a lot in terms of your passion for the tech world. Can I ask, how did you want to get this, to do this as a career, or rather was this something that you've always wanted to do?
Oh, that's a good question. So right out of college, my bachelor's degree was in computer information systems. And I graduated from college early. I came out when I was 19 years old. And, at that age, I started as a computer programmer. So I was always kind of in that techie at heart field, and I've always loved coding. And, as years went by, I started more and more into like database structures and some other technical areas. But then eventually, as my career progressed, I moved into other areas like sales operations, customer product support, a lot of things that have to do with digital transformation. Those are, areas that I was really always active in. And then recently, so a little more than a year ago, Honeywell, we decided to do this concept called a greenhouse. And at Honeywell is a very large company. We're a Fortune 100 company. We're one of those gigantic corporations, and innovation is very, very important to us. But in any large company, some of the challenges that you face are it can become really slow and bureaucratic. And so Honeywell put this concept in place called a greenhouse. And what a greenhouse is they're startups inside the Honeywell four walls, and we're meant to be self-autonomous teams that operate like Silicon Valley startups that you would find in California. So GoDirect Trade started with me as the general manager, and we really run our software startup just like you would see, any, startup that, Facebook, Amazon, Google, they all started out really small in these really intense teams, and that's how GoDirect Trade started. So Honeywell is fully committed to innovation. We're fully committed to competing with small startups by really having that same agile, very quick structure inside of our Honeywell four walls. And really, that's how GoDirect Trade got started.
I see.
Wow.
Lisa, just to check with you, did you design and create the website and systems yourself?
Yeah.
Since you're in that.
Yeah, when I first came in as the general manager, which was actually about 2 years ago, we went live about a little over a year and a half ago. But when I first came in, the concept of GoDirect Trade was wildly different than what you see today. I think the original people who had put together what they thought GoDirect Trade would be like, they put it together more as perhaps a listing service where you could list product for sale, and then people could inquire if that part was available. But then when I came into the role, I would say that my background is I consider myself a professional shopper. So
Wow.
I am telling you, I am a professional online shopper. I know there's no certification for that, but I really consider myself.
They definitely should give a cert
for this role. It was absolutely perfect for this role. And what do I mean by that? It means that yes, I obviously shop like in just an extraordinary amount every month online, but I could tell you like 15 websites, and I could tell you what their customer experience is like, how their tax is calculated, what kind of models they use, how their images, display on the page, all kinds of things. Those are things that I really, really pay attention to. And I feel like I really know online e-commerce in lots of different industries and verticals. And so when I
Wow.
came to the job, the first thing I really said was, we need to make this like Etsy. I don't know if you're familiar with Etsy, but
Oh,
Etsy,
yeah.
yeah. So Etsy is a
Yeah.
marketplace where you have custom made goods, sellers have storefronts, you can, launch your own shop, right? And then you can shop in people's shops and you maintain your own brand identity at the same time. When I came in as GoDirect Trade, the general manager, I said, we got to make this look like Etsy. I mean, it needs to have that ability where you can launch a storefront. And the first thing I get from, the existing team that's there is, what is Etsy? I mean, this is, for people who work at Honeywell, that Etsy is not the demographic, right? The demographic for Etsy is completely different than what you would see employee-wise at Honeywell. And so that
Uh-huh.
was a huge change for them. First, they had to find out, well, what the hell is Etsy? I mean, I have no idea what you're even talking about. But really, the purpose in kind of benchmarking a marketplace like that is to really say, hey, we don't want this really boring, very corporate-like marketplace, right? We're trying to bring in a very consumer feel into this industry, which is really antiquated. Everything is done via emails and phone calls. I would say the consumer population, they tend to be on the older side where technology is not like their number one thing that they want to do for transacting, because they like relationships and they like talking on the phone. And so really when I came in, I wanted to make sure that it had a very modern consumer-like feel, and really benchmarking against, the modern, really up-to-date marketplaces was where I wanted to head with it. So back to your original question, did I really have a hand in the website development and really what you see? And I would say first, I have a fantastic team of UI and UX designers, and I have a fantastic development team. But I would say I take a lot of pride in the fact that what you see when you go on www.godirecttrade.com, the look and feel is very much something that I put a lot of my heart and soul into. And it's very uncorporate-like. I think that's the first thing that people say in aviation when they come to our site is, okay, this looks nothing like I would expect from an aviation marketplace out there. And so we take pride in that, and that's
I
really
see.
that we're spearheading.
Wow.
There you have it. That means you really put in your heart into the user interface and the user experience, bringing your personal shopper's experience into it. Definitely, your professional personal shopping
Yeah, my
experience.
professional, even though there's no certification for that, I feel like I need to get a
Ah,
certification for that.
wow. I think Alibaba is going to have a run for their money then.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Secondly, Lisa, now that you have designed this thing, how would you describe that website itself? How the shopping, is it like an online one-stop center where you can get all kinds of sorts of parts and stuff required for the aviation?
Yep. So we always describe our site as if Amazon and Etsy had a baby and that
Mm-hmm.
baby corporate tie, that would be
Mm-hmm.
GoDirect. So it's like
Ah,
Amazon in that it's a really easy consumer experience. You can select something online and check out within 60 seconds or less. It's
wow.
like Etsy in that you can be anyone from a mom and pop shop to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and you can
Mm-hmm.
launch storefront in less than 5 minutes. It's incredibly easy to launch your own storefront. And then we say it's like a baby with a corporate tie because GoDirect Trade is a differentiator in itself because we are still really gearing towards those B2B transactions, which are very different from B2C transactions. It's like we're
Correct.
trying to do B2B transactions, but have that consumer flair. So for example, we have sellers on GoDirect Trade that tried to open a store on Amazon. So they tried to sell their parts through Amazon. But what they found was that two things. One, the technical documentation, the things that you really need to be able to load against your listings that are aviation specific, they were not available through Amazon's UI, their user
Mm-hmm.
interface. And then secondly, we are still in this really antiquated world in aviation where people pay by a purchase order. And so you have to pay with a credit card, you have to have an account. And on GoDirect Trade, we allow customers to come in and pay with a purchase order. And then that information just flows down to the seller and then they process the order from there. So even though it's antiquated, some of the ways that the payment is collected, still required. And so we don't want to, not allow those sellers to partake in e-commerce just because, they can't take credit cards.
Yeah.
So really GoDirect Trade setup, it's a consumer, very easy to use consumer site that still allows for B2B transactions. And the other thing I would mention that's really interesting is there's 20 competitors in this space. So in the space of sell used serviceable materials, so used aviation parts in the world today, we are the only true marketplace out of all 20 of those sites, meaning we are the only marketplace that requires product images, quality paperwork, and price. So believe it or not, other players in this space, they don't have those things. It's kind of like Craigslist, but without price and pictures, which is unbelievable, right?
Yes.
Right.
But it's really because the industry is so antiquated that they're just very used to emails and phone calls. You know, they like picking up the phone, they like, you know, negotiating every single deal. And so the of having price and pictures it's kind of not necessary to them.
Wow.
So our goal is to really set the bar so high on these commerce transactions that 2, 3, 4 years from now, you know, if you're shopping anywhere else but GoDirect Trade and there's no price and there's no pictures, like you just won't put up with it, right? You would say that it's a scam or I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to go to GoDirect Trade because it's really easy and I trust it. And that's really where we're trying to head.
So basically, So basically you've simplified the process and you've also made it very user-friendly and very direct. It's just, like you said, you know, very professional, you know, shopper style and really. Yeah, that's great.
And I would say, so the interesting part about, you know, this industry, so it's $4 billion a year and none of it is done online except for what's done on GoDirect Trade. And we're trying to shift the whole industry to go online and to start doing e-commerce. But, you know, if you really think about e-commerce, you know, a good user experience, right? The price, the product images, quality paperwork, all of those things in e-commerce, those are really just table stakes. So if you look at if you look at, you know, Google Shopping, those things are all required. That's not like a new thing, right? And so aviation is really even more complex when it comes to e-commerce because GoDirect Trade has all those things that are required, right? And it's still not enough to get people to just check out online. You know, even though I have price, paperwork, product images, there's still more to solving the problem of moving people to this digital channel. And one of the problems I've seen is it really comes down to trust. These are $1 parts. Our average order is $10,000. And then the second thing is they have to be safe enough to reinstall back into an aircraft. So there's definitely a quality element that is far different than, you know, if you buy a pair of shoes on Amazon or buy something on Alibaba as a normal consumer. If you mess up the order, you know, with your pair of sneakers, you're going to get an upset consumer, but it's not that big of a deal. If we ship the wrong parts on GoDirect Trade and it goes into the wrong aircraft or the part doesn't meet quality standards, it causes far more problems than the wrong pair of shoes.
Correct.
And so for us, that was a big problem. It was figuring out, okay, table stakes is price, product images, paperwork. What else do we have to do in this marketplace to bring it to the next level so people will check out? And really, that's what led us to blockchain technology. Blockchain technology, at its core being, it's really a technology that manufactures trust between two people or two parties, but in a digital way. And so we use blockchain technology inside our marketplace to manufacture trust in the transaction so that, you know, if you have two listings, you can really make the decision via our part pedigree solution, which is blockchain enabled, to know what has been, who the previous owners were, so on and so forth.
I see. So you sort of verify the transaction, do the escrow and checkings, and make sure that the QC is there.
Yeah, it's actually very similar to if you're familiar with Carfax. So Carfax is a solution for used automobiles. And what Carfax does, provides you a report or provides the consumer a report of everything that's gone on with that car. So has it been in accidents? Has it been maybe in cold weather where, you know, the snow might damage the engine? Has it been what repair shop? So basically puts together a pedigree of everything that's gone on with that vehicle. We use blockchain technology in the same way. So we use blockchain technology to try to store as much information about that part, that aircraft part, as possible, and then we show it to the consumer. So when a consumer is looking on GoDirect Trade for a part, it's going to have a trust trace section, which is our blockchain enabled section, and it tries to tell them, okay, who's a previous owner? Has it been under repair and which repair shop? And what happens is that if you have two identical parts and say they're used, right, but just different serial numbers, and say one has a better part pedigree where you have more information to give about that part than the other one, well, the chances are that the consumer is really going to pick the one with a more complete part pedigree because it gives them more information. So in our case, we use blockchain technology to collect the information from lots of different third parties and in this ecosystem so that we can show it to the consumer. And the hope is that the consumer will use that information to feel better about their transaction when they're checking out and feel more comfortable with actually checking out online.
Right.
Wow.
Interesting. Amy, your next question?
Oh, yes. So like you explained to us, so definitely this process actually eliminates paper documents, but at the same time, you have all that information digitally stored, correct? So how do you feel about this digital technology and the sustainability of it all?
I think that, eventually most everything, if not like 99.9% of the world is going to go paperless. And I think that if you don't believe that, you're probably just kidding yourself. I think that on GoDirect Trade paperwork, so the interesting thing about aviation parts, especially used aviation parts, two things that's really interesting. One is the average number of times that a used part changes hands or owners is 4 times, which is wildly different than the automotive sector, where typically if you have a part that comes off your car, you're going to scrap it and then replace it with a new part. But in aviation, because parts are so expensive, then it definitely changes owners multiple times, and the average is 4. So that's a lot of times, that changes.
Oh yeah, that's actually a lot. I had no clue.
It is. Yeah. So the second thing with aviation too is for used parts, if you don't have the paperwork that goes with your part, that part is pretty much worth its scrap metal value. That is how important it is to keep paperwork with your part. And the paperwork is typically paperwork that says, I've repaired this part at this repair shop. It certifies that you can reinstall it back into the aircraft. And when you don't have that paperwork or you lose it, you could physically lose the paperwork and then your part is worth nothing. Or you can actually part without paperwork and have no way to trace it back to get the paperwork for it. So when you talk about, is going paperless, is digital documents, is that really the wave of the future? In the used aviation sector, it will become everything. And one of the cool things that we do with blockchain technology at Honeywell is Honeywell has over 100 OEMs, so the original equipment manufacturer, and repair shops across the globe. So Honeywell's huge, and we have a ton of different repair shops. Now, what we do is every time we manufacture a part, every time we repair a part, all of the quality documents that are generated, we still print out that PDF document and we store it on a content server, but we also take that form data and we store it on chain on our blockchain ledger. And what that allows us to do is we can take that data on our blockchain ledger and we can reconstruct the documents digitally on the fly. So instead of pulling up a PDF document, our customers can now go onto our user interface and they can search. It's so easily searchable and accessible. And it basically will say, okay, for this aircraft, either their part number or their aircraft tail number, it will pull up all the digital documents that are reconstructed on the fly directly from the blockchain. So people don't have to worry about, okay, where am I going to store all my PDF documents that are tied to my parts? Where am I going to store the paper copies? Am I going to put it in a filing cabinet? Because with Honeywell, all of our repairs and everything we manufacture is now purely digital, which is amazing, right? It is like the next level of digital documentation.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Wow, that's really amazing. So basically, your GoTrade Direct uses this blockchain technology to store all the information about about the parts of all the aircraft, and basically you just have everything, all the documents, and it simplifies the process for the users, the end buyers as well. Wow, that's amazing. So I guess we've talked enough about all this. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where do you see yourself, say, perhaps maybe in 5 or even 10 years from now?
Yeah, so 5 to 10 years from now, I know my passion is definitely in running businesses. I love owning a business, owning the profit and loss statement. But what I especially love, like out of running a business, is I love innovation. And I think a lot of people say, I love innovation, I love growth, like I love new things. But I think for me personally, I'm the type of person that I really thrive on, finding that next big thing, solving that customer problem that people didn't even know was a problem. those are the kinds of things that I'm really passionate about. So, in 5 to 10 years, I hope to be running another company, like a full-blown company, not just like a product line or a business like GoDirect Trade. I definitely want to expand that. And I want to be really at the helm of trying to find out, what the next greatest innovations are going to be for the planet. Like, that's really what's interesting. One thing I would also say too is that's a big aspiration, right? I mean, I think that for any male or female, that's a big aspiration to want to run a small, mid, or a large size company and really be at the helm. I have 4 kids. I have a husband who's super supportive.
Wow, 4 kids. How do you do all
Wow.
that?
You just have to have that balance between, wanting to be at the top and, having a family that you want to, be there for lots of their milestones and for their events and, for their life. So it's going to be something that's what I aspire to do. But, first and foremost, what's always most important is really that, my family that's around me.
Yes. That's nice.
Wow, that's amazing. So, with all that business, with your responsibilities and, with your family time, do you even actually have time outside of work, to, maybe chill and or engage in some
Yes, I do.
hobbies?
Everyone does. No matter how busy people are, when they say they're like too busy for downtime, it just means they must be doing crazy wrong things, because I feel like, yeah, our lives are really busy. But if you want to make time for downtime, you can certainly make time for downtime. And I love shopping. Like, I'm a big online shopper. Even throughout the day, I'll shop. I know I'm for Honeywell, but I have to keep fresh. And so I have to make sure I'm constantly shopping. But I love to read. And, I think a lot of people say, what business books do you like? I don't really like business books. I don't really like self-help books. If I have to read them, I'll read them through Blinkist, which is an easy way to read. But my favorite books of all time are always like romantic comedies. I love romance novels.
Oh, yeah.
Just like I do online shopping, and I'm proud of it. And I would love to be an author one day to, when I retire and write a romance novel. But like, I love spending my downtime on reading for sure.
Wow.
Wow. That's amazing.
So you have it, folks. The best way to relieve your stress is through online shopping. Take it from Liz.
Yeah.
For sure, 100%. But I honestly, that's not even a stress reliever, because it's just something typically part of my day. I mean, I'm constantly shopping online, so it's like I want to shop and have downtime. It's a natural part of my day, like multiple times a day, trying to shop.
Well, I'm not quite sure, but for tech geeks like us, we'll be so glued to the computer, we never have time to buy anything,
I find, like online shopping to me is a technical type thing, right? I'm always looking at how they're displaying things on the page and how they're running their promotion. I'm always looking at content. So I am definitely a content hound. The promotions that I get via email or through social media, I'm always taking screenshots. I'm always copying and pasting kind of messaging that they have to, for my own use. So I feel like it's always, researching.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are you an avid gamer or something?
So funny enough, when I was younger, I loved gaming. I mean, I have 3 older brothers, and I think that's a big part of why I liked video games, was because there were so many males in my family that did video games that I naturally would, otherwise no one would play with me. But yeah, I love video gaming. I don't have as much time for it now, but funny enough, the 4 kids that we have, they are avid gamers. And one thing I always like, here's a fun fact. Something I talk about, especially at women's type events, is I would highly encourage, like, for those of you who have kids, especially females, like girls, like, encourage them to get involved in video games. I think Melinda Gates once said that, she believes that gaming is a big reason why you see so many males, like in the technical fields, like computer science and engineering. And I can see why. I mean, I was a total techie at heart, and I love video games, right? And it's not to say it's 100% correlation, but I think it definitely gets you interested in technical type things and programming when you like naturally start playing games in your everyday life. So I always encourage, my kids to play. They love video games. They're addicted, and it's horrible. I mean, it's just horrible how much they play. But at the same time, I love them girls play Fortnite, and they're talking about like
Wow.
killing people off, and it's horrible but there's no blood, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Fortnite. Okay. Yeah. So you're gonna get them the new PS5 then?
So I've been looking at the Xbox Series X. Actually, I've had my eye on that, and it's so sad because they're completely sold out. But what I found like, on Twitter and like all over is they're actually having a lot of quality problems with the Xbox Series X. So I'm actually slightly glad that I did not get an Xbox Series X through that batch. They're so completely, but I'm hoping that maybe on the next batch they won't have the same quality errors, because I hear there's a lot of disk spinning with the just went out.
So hopefully you'll be able to get one.
Yeah.
And that's why I honestly today I probably checked the websites like 10 times. So that's like times 10 times, that's 50 checks. So that's
then the PS5 digital is more useful for you then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Amy?
But that's all.
Yeah.
Yep. So, just to wrap things up a little bit, for our women audience or even our young audience as well, what sort of advice would you give for women like us, or, to the young ones who are aspiring?
So first of all, the first thing is I love what you're doing here with this initiative, because I think that there's so much power in women supporting women and men supporting women too. Not to say that
thank you, Brendan.
Men are, but we need extra oomph, right? We're still catching up, and in order to catch up, we need that extra help. And so the first thing is women supporting women actively. So like through this forum, but at work, being at a table or being on a conference call, reinforcing women's ideas, reinforcing what they have to say. If you hear, a female speaking on the phone and she's getting kind of, like her voice is too low, or, somebody is speaking over her, saying, hey, I can hear you, Amy. Like, can you say that one more time so I can hear your thoughts? But reinforcement is huge, especially within like in these groups that are so male dominated. But the thing I would say that is most interesting to me about, women in the workforce is we talk so much about how, in the C-suite, so in that, executive suite, it's so skewed towards males. I think typically you see like 3 to 6% are in that female C-suite kind of sector. And then you have to ask yourself why. And a lot of times people think about, well, it's because the pipeline, right? The mid-management level, there's not as many females. And when they feed in, then it's even less. And so that's why you get so many less women. So we need to make sure that we really beef up the ranks in the mid-level, mid to senior management sectors of women, so that there's more to choose from. But interestingly enough, what I have found is even in the lower level grades. So my son is in fourth grade, or when he was in fourth grade, they did this social experiment with the 60 people in their class. Kind of ran this like fictitious town where they were like accountants, mayors, CEOs of companies. And within that 60 children kind of setting, there were 12 CEOs that had to be elected. And then there were businesses that kind of grew from those 12 CEOs in fourth grade. And interestingly, 100% of those CEOs that were chosen were male. So there wasn't a single female in that whole class of 60 children that ended up getting selected to be a CEO in one of those 12 spots. And I bring up this, this kind of interesting dynamic because it just, there's many reasons probably why it happened, right? I don't have the exact reason, why it happened either, but it makes you think about, it's not just like in corporate America in that mid-level management level, right? There's not enough females. It really starts at home.
Right.
And so everyone who's watching this, I would say that it is so important to talk to your daughters, your nieces, your neighbors' kids, your friends' kids, and talk to the girls and say, what are you interested in? Do they know what a CEO does? Do they know what running a business means? Do they like to invent things? Do they want to, run a business and start selling what they make? Those are things that are really dependent on us as a community to really nurture at the young ages. And we forget that. So many times we want to blame and we want to kind of assign the reason inside of, the corporate structure. But we need to really take a look at, the younger kids, and they're figure out why girls may not be that interested in like running a business and why, and maybe they don't know about it. So that's why we have to start having those conversations with our young girls and getting them involved in math and science and engineering and running a business and being in charge, right?
Right, that's so true because like I know definitely I mean from where I am in Asia, there's a lot of emphasis for, oh, girls have to do a certain role at home and so
Yeah.
like you said, it's so true. Like we definitely everything starts at home, especially for all these gender
It
roles,
does.
especially what females can do or they cannot do, but actually, yeah. So wow, thank you so much for your
Correct.
piece. Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much for your your encouragement and your advice and your sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Well, as Lisa has said it, this is the mentality of things that a lot of things are gender tag labeled. For example, from toys, why should cooking be confined to women and girls when right now we even have junior master chefs that are male and female and all
Yep.
that. Riding on the statistics, the demographics that you were giving on your son's 60 kids
Yep.
thing, do you think that corporate America and everywhere around the world right now, do we have enough female representation in the top levels and C-suites?
No, I think we have such a long way to go there. I think that we're making a lot of progress. I think that now seems like the time where there's a lot of movements and a lot of change and a lot of inclusion, like genuine movements that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Honeywell is one of them. I think we're genuinely in as far as trying to make a difference at bringing the levels where they need to be for women and
Right.
minorities alike.
And let's say we talk about gender inequality. Is there any discrimination or, masculinity being pushed about? Have you had any experiences and stuff like that?
I personally have not, but I have definitely been close to people who have run into those issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real thing. And I think that the important part is to recognize that it's a real thing. It's not a wives' tale, that goes on, and that it's everyone's responsibility to do something about it. So if you see something, speak up, right? Let's change it together instead of just letting things slide.
Right. We're glad to hear that at least you have very good working partners and the men around you are with you along. So what are your advice to people like that they have faced discrimination and couldn't hit the glass ceiling?
I think one thing I would say is life in general is not always fair, right? I think
Yes.
if we're trying to get to a world where everything is fair, then you're going to be waiting a really long time because the world itself is just not fair, right? And so when things are really out of your control, right? And that's assuming that we do as much as we can, like to support each other, to bring each other up, to make a difference individually, to speak up when you should speak up. But aside from all those things, if you're sitting at a table with like 10 men and aviation, like aerospace, it's very typical that it's male oriented. But if you're sitting at a table with 10 men, you can brood about it and say, well, why is it that there's, 10 men at the table and why aren't there more women at the table? But that doesn't get you anywhere because life really isn't fair. So what can you do? You know what you can do as a female? You can sit there at the table and you can show them like what a woman can do, right? You bring all you got, you show those men, your your drive, your ambition, your intellect, right? While being respectful and humble, right? You don't have to go in there like a really aggressive pit bull, but at the same time, show them what you got. So life isn't fair, but when you're in a situation where, it's going to be male dominated, like show them what a woman can bring perspective wise and intellect wise to the table.
wow, that's really beautiful indeed.
Yeah, you sound like the vice president elect already.
Yeah, I love Kamala Harris. Yeah.
Amy, anything else?
Well, I think that's it. Thank you so much, and thank you for your piece,
thank you
and
guys.
for all the females out there. As Lisa said, if you are going through anything, just remember that you have everything that you need, and it's at the end of the day, it's really not about male, female. Believe in yourself. Do what you can.
Yeah.
Use your brain. you know, your intellect, your wit, your mental capacity, you know that you've got it. And to all the women out there that are listening, you know, thank you so much for, you know, listening in on this. And I hope this interview helps you and in achieving your future career goals.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
So, Lisa, just before we end this, do you have anything that you want to share for us? You know, any special quotes that you have for people to be inspired?
So yeah, my family, we are very sports oriented. I mean, we're very competitive people and we love sports. But one of my favorite ones is by Wayne Gretzky. He's a famous hockey player, but he said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And, you know, I would say like early on in my career, everyone is afraid of failing, right? There's lots of times I can think of in my career where I didn't go for something, I didn't try for something because I didn't want to be embarrassed. I mean, just think at like a theme park, you play a basketball game and you don't want to embarrass yourself by not winning in front of all those people. But you don't try, if you don't take the shot, there's no way you're going to make it anyway. So you've just got to go out there. So for women out there who, you know, they're tentative about changing careers or going for a job or, you know, speaking to somebody or speaking up at a meeting, if you don't try, you're not going to make it anyway. So you've got to try. You have to try.
Yes.
Take the shot. Thank you so
Take the
much,
shot.
Elizabeth.